Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Voting has begun in the United States in the midterm elections which will determine who controls Congress, which is made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate. Currently both are controlled by President Joe Biden's Democrats, and the Republicans are predicted to take the House. The battle to control the Senate is on a knife edge and too close to call. Losing either chamber would make the next 2 years very difficult for Joe Biden, as Republicans would attempt to block legislation. Leaders from African countries have criticized wealthy governments and oil companies for driving global warming to demand that they pay up for damages being inflicted on their economies.
In the last 50 years,
the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda calling on oil companies to shell out some of their huge recent profits.
The oil and gas industry continues to earn almost $3 billion United States dollars daily in profits,
while leaders of African states demanded more international funds.
Our continent will need a predictable, appropriate, and at-scale funding stream and technological support. This must support our right to development, international equity and transmissions that are just and inclusive.
Rwanda, like the rest of Africa, is ready to prioritize renewable energy. We do this for our own future. The most valuable contribution that the developed countries can make is to reduce their emissions faster, while investing with Africa to build sustainable green power.
The white supremacist who murdered 51 people at 2 mosques in New Zealand is appealing against his conviction. Court officials said Brenton Tarrant has filed an appeal against his case and sentence. Tarrant was jailed to life without parole in 2020 for the murder and attempted murder of Muslim worshippers. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said he was attempting to re-victimize people. A team of technical advisors from the Franco-Italian aircraft manufacturer ATR is on its way to Tanzania to investigate why one of its planes crashed into Lake Victoria. The passenger plane, operated by Precision Air, had 43 people on board. Despite frantic rescue attempts, at least 19 people died in the crash. Tanzanian authorities said investigations were underway and the findings would be made public. The country's transport minister said that the weather had abruptly changed as the plane approached the airport. Former FIFA President Sepp Blatter says the decision to award the 2022 World Cup to Qatar was a mistake. Blatter was president of World Football's governing body when Qatar was awarded the tournament in 2010. He told a Swiss newspaper, "It is too small of a country. Football and the World Cup are too big for it." The Gulf state has been criticised for its stance on its human rights record and treatment of migrant workers. It is the first World Cup to be hosted in the Middle East and takes place from the 20th of November to the 18th of December. And finally, giant rats wearing tiny high-tech backpacks are being trained in Tanzania for search and rescue operations. A Belgium-based company has already trained rats and dogs to detect landmines, as well as sniffing out outbreaks of tuberculosis. But because of their size and agility, rats could also be a valuable tool for existing search and rescue efforts. The rats are African giant pouched rats that have been trained to locate humans in a mock disaster zone, such as after an earthquake, and will eventually be fitted with a technology-enabled backpack to enable real-time wireless audio-visual communication from within the debris site.
The rats are just as trainable as dogs. They've got a great sense of smell, and their small size and natural agility should hopefully make them really good in this scenario where they could squeeze in small spaces and get closer to any victims.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.